Welcome to DasGeek. So what I have here is the Pinebook Pro. This is my final video that I have planned for this series. We did the live unboxing when I got this $199 laptop. We did a tips and trick video, and this is the final video here to give my overall opinion of the device after using it for a few weeks. Now, I also took this on a trip recently, so it's been through TSA. It's been my primary laptop I used on that trip. And I can say, certainly, if you're wondering, should you buy this device? The answer is yes, but there's some caveats here that I want to get into because depending on what you're doing with this device, it may not be the laptop for you. But what this has shown me above all else is that you can create a very beautifully designed laptop that runs Linux out of the box, looks gorgeous, all for a very, very inexpensive price. And I would take this any day over the week over a Chromebook. So now let's get into all of the different categories I'm going to rate this on. So aesthetically, this device, in my opinion, is fantastic. The only thing I don't like about the aesthetics of the device is the fact that it's a fingerprint magnet. I don't know if it's the type of coating that they use or whatever, but even before this video, I wipe it down. But anytime you touch it pretty much anywhere, and you could probably see it in the light, you get those smudges kind of across the device. And because there's nothing to break it up, there's no logos, there's nothing on here, which, as a hacker laptop, which is kind of what this is meant to be. This is a laptop you can hack around with. You can upgrade later on. You can add additional components into, which is something we don't see very often in laptops today, where everything is glued together. You're not supposed to get inside them, and if you do, you have to use really special care before you change anything. This is a very different design in that it's meant to be opened up, and if you know what you're doing, of course, and you can add things in like NVMe drives, other components that they sell to expand, change, or even upgrade the entire machine itself because it's entirely ARM based and very easy to upgrade. Aesthetically, it is very thin, it is light, it is easy to carry around. I have to keep two laptops with me on a trip. One is a work laptop, which is old and very thick, and I carry everything on carry-on luggage, so I do not check bags. So I have limited space, and I don't want something super heavy. I don't want to be carrying around a backpack that's super heavy. So I have my work laptop that's already heavy, but adding this in, was no weight at all, and it's so thin it just slid into the side pocket of my backpack and allowed me to carry a secondary laptop on, getting it in and out of TSA super easy. And obviously very durable. Talking about durability, and I discussed this on the Destination Linux podcast, they don't have this on their website, strangely enough, or mentioned in their forums, but it's so durable, in fact, that my son used it as a launch pad. It was sitting on the couch cushion, and he wanted to get from one couch to the other and stepped on it to jump to the other couch, not realizing it was there, and there's no damage to the device at all. So it is very durable. Now, I'm not saying you could sit there and drop it and kick it around and it's not going to break, but it is as durable as any well-made laptop out there that you'll find. I think it's very sharp. The corners are very tight. Everything's put together. The hinges on the device are very solid. They stay where you put them. I feel like the hinge is, your classic design, and it's going to last. That's a hinge that's just going to last. If you look at the hinge there, it's just a classic hinge design there that we've seen in many laptops over the years. They didn't try to recreate the wheel, and we know that this particular design is usually very solid and will stay firm for a long time. You've got nice LED lights there at the top of the keyboard to let you know what's going on. As far as your battery life, power button, caps lock key on, those type of things. Absolutely love the fact that you've got a lot of ports. You've got your Type C port, you've got your USB 3.0, you have your USB 2.0, you have your headphone jack, and micro SD card also built into this ultra slim profile here. And you have nice rubberized feet at the bottom of the laptop, so you don't have to worry about scratching if it slides against the surface or something along those lines. Next, we'll talk about sound on this device. So you have two speakers inside, and if you look at my unboxing video, I actually took off the case here to show everything inside. The speakers leave a lot to be desired, to be honest. They feel very cheap. They're cheap sounding speakers. They There is issues in this device specifically that I think they have fixed with the latest patch that they put in, where in addition to kind of being really poor sounding laptop speakers, they also were really low in the browser. Anytime you're using a browser, like watching YouTube videos or anything else, the sound was just insanely low. Now, yesterday I ran a firmware update. There was a new patch from, I think they call Mr. Fix It, and it seems like the sound has improved tremendously from a volume standpoint, but still the speakers sound tinny and bland and, well, like a cheap laptop speaker. So in a future iteration, I would really like to see them move these from the bottom, because bottom firing speakers, so you've got inexpensive speakers to begin with, and then you're firing them out the bottom where most laptops are sitting on a surface, sitting on your lap, a cushion of the couch, something along those lines. And so it's drowning out even more of that sound. Whereas there's really no reason I can think of that they didn't just, and I might just hack this device and try it myself, just because here's the speaker here. Just put some holes or a little grill right here and flip the speaker around so that it's firing from the front. And that way you don't have to worry about the sound muffling. So if you use headphones and things, which most people do when they're traveling, like I did when I was traveling on the airplane with the device, perfectly capable of driving your headphones and getting fantastic sound based on the quality of your headphones. But as far as speakers themselves, they feel like they belong in a very cheap laptop. Performance on this device is ridiculously impressive for what it is. So this is an ARM-based device. So this isn't the latest Intel Core i7, or what is it? Intel Core 10988X-E-54Z65 or Threadripper, right? This is an ARM-based device. It is hackable. You can replace it and upgrade it in the future. And it's meant to be a low power consumption, but decent performance device. And it hits all of those perfectly. I have been able to render video on this device. It's not fast, but you can't expect fast for a $199 ARM-based laptop, but it can be done in OpenShot. I have been able to do all of my writing and documents and online and YouTube and watch movies and everything that I've needed to do with this device. Now, there is a performance option in the Debian where you can move it from, power saving to a performance mode, or even max it out so that it's running at its max boost speeds. And at times you'll want to do that if you're doing some things like very light gaming and stuff on this. You would want to not have it variable where it tries to decide itself where to be, because you'll see some stuttering and things, but manually set that. And it's just a little button at the bottom of your screen, a little widget that you click on to change. So it's not like you have to do any voodoo to make it happen. The performance of this device is very impressive. Again, keeping in mind what it is and what you would be doing with this kind of device, it really blew me away how much can actually be done on this. The screen itself is quite an accomplishment, in my opinion. One of the reasons why I love the screen on this device so much is because of the matte finish to the screen. And I talked about this immediately when I unboxed it. It was kind of one of the first things that, one of my first impressions, one of the first things that I noticed. I'm going to turn the brightness up all the way here. The screen is just, it's gorgeous for a $199 laptop. It's not going to compete with a 2K screen. It doesn't have the nits of, something like the latest Dell XPS, but it is completely and utterly adequate for what you would do with this type of laptop. In fact, I would say it's a better screen than what most laptops, especially within less than 300, less than $400 range, come with. There's no time that I'm sitting there looking at blurry text or I can't make things out. I think it's a fantastic screen for the price. It's exactly what I would expect, and maybe a little bit better than what I would expect from a laptop, again, in this price range. It's bright, it's matte, so you're not seeing your reflection every 5 seconds. It's just a really good screen overall for this machine. And of course, we already talked about the hinge, which I think is fantastic. It does have a front facing camera, but you know, it's barely a front facing camera. The quality is kind of terrible. Let me just show you what I'm talking about. You can see here, you're gonna see the light in the camera, but it's delayed. I think there's probably some type of firmware problem going on here, but the quality of the camera itself is rather poor. It doesn't represent. It's very pixelated, kind of blown out colors. You know, it's delayed when you move it. Your face kind of phases in and out. It's just a very poor front facing camera. So, you know, they can check the box and say they have one. But again, I think the quality of the front facing camera leaves a lot to be desired. I don't think these are particularly expensive components to put a good front facing camera in. So, this is something I would love to see in a future iteration that they upgrade, because a lot of people now are using video for talking to friends and family, even if you're traveling or something. You know, having a good front facing camera on a laptop is an important feature, and like the speakers, this one leaves a lot to be desired. Getting into the keyboard itself, besides the fact that this is a ISO keyboard and the keys are quite a bit different than what you would expect if you're used to an ANSI keyboard. And that can trip you up for a while when you're trying to utilize this. Of course, they have an ANSI keyboard, and I should be getting one in to be able to swap out on this. But as far as the keys themselves, typing on this, I've written several episodes of Destination Linux, which I do all the show notes and the formatting, and everything has to be perfect. And it takes a long time to do each show every week for the podcast, and you don't want to be slowed down by a terrible keyboard. And this keyboard is certainly meets all of the requirements and expectations of quality that I would expect again in this price range, and much better than most keyboards on laptops in this price range, because the plastic doesn't bend when you're typing in. The whole thing doesn't depress in, which is typically what you see with cheap laptops. People don't really pay attention to the keyboard, but it's an extremely important feature. And this is a really solid keyboard. I like the keyboard. I like all the function key additions that they have. And of course, one of the cool things you have in this is the ability to turn off things from a hardware standpoint, utilizing some of these shortcut keys to turn off your mic, to turn off cameras and things. So you don't have to worry about, you know, from a security and privacy standpoint, somebody being able to go in and turn those on, or software going in and turning those on without you knowing. You can turn those off right through these keyboard shortcuts. It's a fantastic keyboard. No problems with it other than the format itself, you know, where they have some of these keys, because of the type of keyboard it is different than what I'm used to here in the States. But they're going to have an ANSI option, and that would make this kind of perfect. Now, the trackpad is another weak spot for this laptop. You know, it's a supposed to be kind of like a, I guess they said, a metallic feeling trackpad, and it has a nice texture kind of to it, so you know your finger is actually going across, and you can feel some resistance as it's moving across versus just kind of sliding, you know, your mouse across the whole screen on accident or things. Because it has some of that resistance, you feel like you can get really precise, except it's not really that precise. It's good enough. It is adequate at best. But I would really like to see improvements in the trackpad in a future iteration. Trackpads have gotten, of course, much bigger over the years on many devices. This one size is adequate. It's good. It's a, you know, it's a good size trackpad. It doesn't necessarily need to be bigger, but I would love the quality of it to be improved and the precision of it to be improved some more in the future. And I believe one of the firmware updates actually included some improvements to the trackpad, because one of the issues was if your palm was anywhere near it, it kind of locked out the keyboard. Of course, you could turn that off in the operating system itself, which is what I did. So after that, I didn't have any of those issues anymore. A little bit of quality improvement on the material. and it would probably go a long way. Maybe even some independent buttons, but they couldn't probably fit that on this what's left on there and still leave you with a good sized keyboard. So maybe nice glass like material or something there would be better, or just a higher quality trackpad so that the precision of where you put your mouse is more exact. It's fully adequate. You could still do what you need. There's just times where you're trying to get to a corner of a screen and drag it out, or get something tiled correctly using the mouse in the right position, with the edges of borders that you're moving in programs, and it's a little bit of a pain, a little bit wonky. People asked a lot about heat in this, and yes, this device can get hot, specifically where the ARM processor is at. Because there's no fan or things on this device, there's nowhere to move the heat, and there's no heat pipes. So it gets very hot if you're doing intensive tasks right at the point where that ARM processor is. Now, they have kind of a heat pad here under the cover, but that heat pad again just moves the heat from the processor really to the back of the case. And it stays in one spot because that pad is in one spot. And so that pad is actually doing its job, because when I check the temperatures on the ARM processor itself, on the CPU and the GPU, the temperatures are in perfect operating range, even when this gets super hot, when I'm doing some intensive tasks on this device, like for instance, trying to watch a 2K a video in 2K, or doing some video rendering and things. It can get really, really hot there. But again, looking at the actual specs of the CPU, looking at the temperatures, they're in perfectly normal range, but the touch gets super hot when under intensive tasks. If you're not doing intensive tasks, like right now I'm holding it, it's just barely warm. And you could have this on your lap and it would be no problem at all. Watching basic YouTube videos, depending on the quality of them and things, and what other tasks that you're doing, you may or may not experience it. But it would be much better if they had some type of heat piping in here. Again, because they don't have any active cooling, any spinning fans or anything. They really need something to kind of move that heat out of just the one area, and you won't have that intense heat. So I would love to see an add-on or something that you could buy that you could just stick on there and maybe spread some of that heat across this device. That would be something in a future version that they could improve on. And the last piece really isn't their fault necessarily, but the software out there for ARM based devices is far more limited than what it is for any other device. So I think when you get a device like this, one of the primary purposes that you would use it for is something like watching videos and YouTube and those type of things. And while it's capable of doing that, when you have issues with things like sound, or in Firefox, for instance, when you sign into your YouTube account, you get no sound. If you're not signed in, you have sound. Certain application or certain things seem to work better in Chromium than they do Firefox, but um, there's no complete experience on the browser here, just utilizing one or the other. And because of that, and because that's a primary function I look at with this type of device that you'd be using a lot of for internet and browsing functions, it's a huge weakness. Now, Pine specifically is one of those companies that say, hey, we're going to go out there, we're going to produce hardware for near cost, and just get it out in the hands. And we expect the community, the open source community, and the software folks to go out there and then create software around it. And that's not a bad plan. It helps keep costs down for them and helps limit the amount of, you know, support staff and everything else that they would have in order to have a device, which would raise the price significantly, well into the $300 price range and things that you would see a laptop of this quality normally being at. So it's a fine thing. Unfortunately, the software on ARM just isn't there yet. Now, I can do everything I need to do, but with annoyances. Like I was talking about with the signing out issue, with some of the quality of the stream playback. And for instance, if you want to use Manjaro ARM on this, one of the issues is things like the Widevine implementation. So, you don't even have the codecs available to be able to play videos. Debian, they have a patch script that they've done here. I tried to use that same script, edit it to work in Manjaro. It doesn't work. I cannot get things to like Amazon Prime videos or Netflix to work on this device unless I'm in the Debian iteration. So again, just the experience overall on ARM and specifically to the browsers is where it's lacking, because the device like this, software heavily focused on browser like activities, and with the browsers being a weak point, that really creates a frustration. So with all that being said, the device is amazing, and I've gone through the good and the bad. But the good is it's beautiful, it feels high quality, the keyboard is fantastic, it is hackable, fully upgradable, has plenty of ports, the screen is gorgeous. You can run things like Telegram. You can edit videos on this. You have lots of software, far more software available on this than you do a Chromebook, a stock. Now, Chromebooks allow you to install Linux on them now so that they can have applications like this, but you have to hack around to do that, whereas this comes with base. The work needs to be done from the software standpoint to improve the browser experience. Work needs to be done on a couple little things, the speakers, the trackpad, the front facing camera, but all of those are easily ignored for a laptop that only costs $199. And maybe with a little bit of quirk here and there, you're able to do all the work. I was able to do all the work that I would normally do and do some entertainment as well on this device for as little money as that costs. And that in itself is quite impressive. Battery life on this, 4 to 6 hours is what you can expect if you're a moderate usage on this. And it just depended on what I was working on, but I would say 4 to 6 hours is a good average there to expect. So not the greatest battery life considering, but I pretty much always keep this in high performance mode. So if you were doing light tasks and put it in a more conservative battery mode, maybe because you're just writing on this, then you might be able to, stretch that a little longer. But that's what I was able to get out of the device. So overall, very impressed with the Pine 64. I would recommend buying this device if you have experience in Linux. Even if you don't have experience in Linux, if you're willing to learn, if you're somebody who likes to learn, then you will have such a good time with this because it's hackable, it's upgradable. You can make this even stronger, faster, better in the future. And that's pretty amazing. And you don't find that in laptops today. They make them so that they're basically e-waste for most laptops and you throw them in the trash when you're done. Whereas this is meant to continue to go on with you. And because it's made of such nice premium materials, I think that its aesthetics is going to be long lasting on this device. So that's my video. Leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. Tell me where you think I went wrong. Again, these are all just my personal opinions, and that can vary depending on the person and what their expectations are for the device. Thank you for watching the channel. Check out DestinationLinux.network, because DasGeek channel is a part of the DestinationLinux.network, and DasGeekCommunity.com has been upgraded as well now. So it's much easier to navigate and get to the things that you want, like Brain Dump, where I put pro tips and tricks and some of my GitHub scripts and things out there. Also, we have incredible gear on DestinationLinux.network, where you can get a shirt that has Ask Noah Show, Tux Digital Show, Linux for Everyone, Zebediah Boss, DasGeek, all on one shirt, concert style. Incredible stuff. Great for the holidays. I hope you have a fantastic Thanksgiving. And until next time, get out there and fill your brains.
Don't forget to subscribe. And make them if you like this video.